Okay, on 7-4, we're going to talk about 30, 60, 90 triangles. Off of this, it's going to be very, very similar to the 45, 45, 90 triangles that we just did. Okay, the process that we're going to do here is exactly the same, although our ratio is going to be a little bit different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to this part right here, and I'm going to talk about what is the ratio. It's important to notice that we have 30-degree angle here, 60-degree angle here, and a 90-degree angle here. Okay, opposite of the 30, we're going to label that side x. Opposite of the 90, we're going to label it 2x. And opposite of the 60, we'll label it x square root of 3. This is the labeling that we'll use just like the 45, 45, 90 triangle. Notice that there are some significant differences here. We'll prove on show you how we get these in a second. Okay, same type of triangle, the exact same triangle, except the orientation is different. It's been rotated. Find the 30-degree angle. The side opposite is x. Opposite of the 90, 2x. Opposite of the 60, x square root of 3. Okay, how do we come up with these ratios? Okay, we're going to look at this equilateral triangle here to show that. Okay, equilateral triangle. We also know that it's equal angular. What do all three of these angles have to be? 60 degrees. Now, another important part of a triangle is the altitude, or the height. And if we draw that height in there, 90 degrees with the base, that height line, that dotted line, is going to bisect this triangle. So this becomes 30 and 30. Bisects, cuts it exactly in half. Okay, now our sides here, we could label the sides of this triangle. We could say that it was 10, 5, but because we're going to bisect it, I'm going to do something, try to make it easy. Each length is 2x. And now that when we bisect this, we're going to cut this one in half, which would mean that this half is x, and this half is x. So what we end up with, if we look at half, is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Length here is x, length here is 2x. We need to figure out what this height is. Okay, said all along, this is a shortcut to the Pythagorean theorem. Look at the Pythagorean theorem. The C is over here. The A is here. The B is the height that we're looking for. Plug in what we know. C is 2x. We want to square that. A is x. We want to square that. And then we don't know what the height is, and that's what we want to solve. Big mistake right here that people make is they don't distribute the square. 2 squared is 4, and then we have x squared equals x squared plus b squared. Isolate the b, get it all by itself. I got to get rid of this x squared. I'm going to subtract from both sides. Now, 4x squared minus 1x squared is 3x squared, and that equals b squared. I want b, not b squared. Counter the square with the square root, and that we get the square root of 3x squared equals b. Now, we can split this apart because this can factor out. The square root of 3 times the square root of x squared equals b. And any time that we square a square root, we end up with what's inside. In this case, it's x. Keep the square root of 3 the same, and that is our height, or our b. That is the way that we come up with this ratio. I wanted to show you that so you just didn't think that it was just magical numbers that we threw in there. There's a lot of thought that goes behind this, and that we can use this ratio to help us solve a lot of triangle problems that we will see throughout the year. Moving on to example 1. Okay, on example 1, LMN is our triangle, 60, 90. This angle up here has to be 30. The first step, just like on 45, 45, 90s, is label. Label this out. Our ratios are different. Okay, you can see the ratios here. Opposite of the 60, that's x square root of 3. Opposite of the 90 is 2x. That one's very important to us right there because that helps us solve the next step. Opposite of the 30 is x. We did our label. Step 2, solve for x. Solve x. Here, we have this labeled as 2x and 14 together. They have to be equal to each other. Think about what we need to do to solve for x. One step, divide by 2. X equals 7. We know now what x is. So the third and final step is to plug it in. L to M. L to M is this side here, opposite of the 60-degree angle. I can plug in my value for x, 7 square root of 3. Mn is x, and x is 7. That's how I use my 30, 60, 90 ratios. Okay, does it get harder? Yes. Okay, that's a pretty basic one where it kind of gives you the x right away. On example 2, start off the exact same way. Label. When we label this, opposite of the 30 is going to be x. This whole thing right there is going to be x. So step 2, after we label, solve x, we did. That's it right there. Now what we have to go is finish out our labels. This is 2x, and this is x square root of 3. So the third step, when we go to plug in, opposite over here, so we're going to go, let's go right here, LM, this side here. X is going to equal 2 square root of 5. We know that because of what's paired up right here. LM is x square root of 3. We need x to be substituted in right there. The value for x is 2 square root of 5. We still have that square root of 3. Okay. Now we can clean this up because we can multiply square roots together. The 2 stays the same. 5 times 3 leaves us with 15 inside of the square root. So LM is 2 square root of 15. LN. LN is 2x. 2 times the value of x, 2 square root of 5. On this one, we multiply the 2's together, and we get 4, and the square root of 5 stays the same. 4 square root of 5. Example 3, exactly the same. Label. Opposite of the 30, x. Opposite of the 90, 2x. Opposite of the 60, x square root of 3. 2. Solve for x. Because these are paired up right here, they have to be equal. X square root of 3 equals 8. Hopefully some of you are already starting to figure out what we're going to have to do on this one. We made a big deal on the 45, 45, 90 triangles on this step. We want to counter this multiplication of the square root of 3. We're going to divide by the square root of 3. What we do to one side, we have to do to the other side. So now what we have is that x equals 8 over the square root of 3. Now we had a special rule. We can't have a square root on the bottom. This is different from last time. We had a square root of 2 last time. We're going to do the same process. This is a square root of 3, so we multiply by the square root of 3 over the square root of 3. Across the top, 8 square root of 3. Along the bottom, we get the square root of 9. And the square root of 9 is 3. If we were going to go simplify this, we would take 8 and divide it by 3. We get this long repeating decimal here. We don't want those. The reason why we don't is because it ends up rounding at some point, and we either gain value or lose value. We want to keep our answer exact. So our value for x is going to stay in this form right there. X is equal to x square root of 3 over 3. So I'm going to jump down. Mn is x. Mn is going to be 8 square root of 3 over 3. We'll leave it just like that. ln is going to be 2 times x. 2 times x. 2 times 8 square root of 3 over 3. I can take 2 times 8 and get 16 square root of 3 over 3 for ln. Our last example that we're going to do today, example 4. Nothing changes. Label. Opposite of the 30 is x. Opposite of the 90, 2x. Opposite of the 60, x square root of 3. Step 2, solve the x. We're going to group these together right here. 2x equals 4 square root of 3. Solving for x, I got to divide by 2, and x equals 2 square root of 3. We know what x is. So for mn is x. X is 2 square root of 3. For ml or lm, we have x square root of 3. Well, if x is 2 square root of 3, we have to substitute that in. That's the x value. Don't make this mistake and forget about the square root of 3. That's also with this length here. Now, 2 square root of 3, square root of 3, we can multiply our square roots together. We get the square root of 9. The square root of 9 is actually 3. Now 2 times 3 is 6. So LM is 6. Okay, on your assignment today, you're going to look at some that are exactly 30, 60, 90 problems, and then there's a second half to it where we do some word problems where we combined 45, 45, 90 triangles and 30, 60, 90 triangles all on one paper together. And make sure on all those they're word problems, so make sure you draw pictures and label, label, label. It makes things a lot easier. Thank y'all. Y'all have a good day.